Before you walk away, try everything. Exhaust every effort to reconcile, to heal, to grow, because too many couples have given up too soon and they've paid a great price. Like, imagine if we had given up too soon. Look, like now I'm in this season going, look what we would have missed out on, right? Welcome to the Blended Family Breakthrough Podcast. We're your hosts, Mike and Kim.
We believe in a world where blended families can experience a future full of hope, connection, and peace.
That's why we offer tools, strategies, and guidance that move you from a place of confusion and conflict to experiencing a life of confidence and connection.
We're so glad you're joining us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations as we cover everything from romance to parenting, and yes, even dealing with that difficult ex.
So if you're ready to experience breakthrough in your blended family, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Well, hey, welcome. It is so great to be with you once again. We are so grateful that you choose to spend time with us each week, and especially every other week on these longer episodes.
Sure, yeah.
Hey, we would love to see you connecting with us over on Facebook and Instagram. So if you're on those platforms and you want to connect and keep up on the podcast and anything else that might be going on, we would love for you to just look up Blended Family Breakthrough and follow us. And so please do that.
Yes, absolutely. We'd love to hear from you.
Definitely. And if you've got a minute, why not leave a rating or a review wherever you happen to be listening? And we would love to hear your feedback of how the podcast might be bringing you value. So thanks so much for choosing to spend this time with us. Hey, how about we hop in, honey?
Sounds good. When you started out in your relationship, I'm guessing you had some pretty high hopes. You were probably excited about doing life with your best friend, building a future together, cheering each other on, and sharing all the highs and lows. But maybe things haven't turned out the way you imagined. Since the early excitement of falling in love and making a commitment, your relationship has taken a downward turn. Sure, there are some moments of connection that gave you hope, but lately, things have been pretty miserable.
You probably haven't given up, but maybe you're wondering how much longer you can keep going with this emptiness, pain, and frustration. You might feel hopeless or desperate, unsure what, if anything, can turn things around. Maybe your spouse seems apathetic, or maybe they're irresponsible or struggling with depression, or maybe they're a workaholic.
Yeah, maybe your spouse has abusive tendencies, verbally, physically, or sexually, or they're controlling. Perhaps they've disconnected entirely. You don't know how to respond anymore when they're uncommunicative, unfaithful, or struggling with substance abuse. These are big issues.
They are very big issues. Dr. Gary Chapman, who you may know as the author of the 5 Love Languages, refers to these kinds of dynamics as difficult marriages, right? That's putting it lightly. When things are so painful, hard, and confusing that you just feel like walking away. And if you're in a season like that, we want you to know that we see you. We've been there. There were times in our marriage where we were right on the edge of throwing in the towel. The struggles felt really overwhelming, and we weren't sure anything was going to help. So just to be clear, this episode isn't about fixing your partner. We don't have any quick fixes or magical solutions for you, but we do want to offer some hope, encouragement, and some practical guidance.
Absolutely. Not too long ago, we came across one of Gary Chapman's lesser known but incredibly powerful books called Loving Your Spouse When You Feel Like Walking Away. It's written for people in crisis, those desperate for something to change in their relationship. And what I love most is that it's not about fixing your partner. It's about changing your own perspective, your choices, and your heart in a difficult relationship.
Right.
Gary lays out 6 core truths that he calls realities and walks through real-life stories of partners who have made a shift by focusing on their own attitudes and actions. Here's one thing that Gary says that I find very powerful. He says, I believe that in every troubled marriage, one or both partners can take positive steps that have the potential for changing the emotional climate in the marriage.
Yeah, that is so good. The book helps you to identify and reject the myths that tend to keep people stuck. And it helps us to better understand our spouse's behavior and take some meaningful steps toward change.
It also helps you to take responsibility for your own thoughts, emotions, and choices so that you can create a lasting positive shift, not only in your relationship, but in yourself.
Absolutely. So in today's episode, we're going to pull out a few key insights from the book because we believe it's a valuable resource for anyone who's feeling stuck in a difficult relationship. And along the way, we're going to share some of our own stories as well as normal, and also how we moved from a struggling, painful marriage to one that now is thriving and connected.
Absolutely. And it has been a journey. We didn't get there overnight.
For sure. No way at all. Our individual struggles only added to the mess, actually. And I didn't know how to respond when Kim was withdrawn and depressed. Honestly, I just felt abandoned and unsure of how to reach her.
And I felt powerless and trapped when Mike would become controlling. About 15 years ago, we were in a really dark place. Miserable, disconnected, and dangerously close to walking away.
That's right. So let's dive in. In the book, Gary Chapman introduces a concept that he calls reality living. It's all about practical steps to move your marriage from where it is now to where you want it to be. Now, Gary doesn't promise guaranteed success, but what he does promise is the deep satisfaction of knowing you've given your relationship your best effort. And throughout the book, he shares stories of real-life people with real-life struggles, couples who found meaningful solutions in desperate situations by practicing reality living.
When we're unhappy in our marriage, it's easy to feel stuck, hopeless, helpless. You start to believe that change isn't possible. You might even feel like the victim, thinking it's all my spouse's fault, and until they change, there's nothing I can do. But Gary challenges us to shift that mindset. He invites us to stop focusing on what we can't control and to start focusing on what we can, beginning with how we think about our situation.
Exactly, yeah. Reality living starts by exposing and rejecting the myths that keep us trapped. And it takes some courage. It means facing the truth about our circumstances and refusing to blame others for our unhappiness. So let's get started by unpacking 4 myths, and then we're going to explore those 6 powerful truths, what Gary calls realities. That kind of lays the foundation for real and lasting change.
Right. So let's dive in with the first myth, which is, my environment determines my state of mind. This one is so common. When life feels overwhelming or out of control, we might easily assume our only option is to suffer through it. But here's the truth. Your environment might affect you, but it doesn't control you.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to dictate your mood, your relationship, or your future. Honey, I think back to that really hard season in our marriage when I would slip into depression and just kind of tank out and shut down on you. I'd hide away in the bedroom and completely disengage from life and from our relationship.
Yeah, that was really, really hard for me. And for years, I kind of believed that I couldn't be okay unless you were okay. So I kind of would disengage also. I tended to distract the kids with screens and pour all of my energy into trying to pull you out of that depression because I thought it was my job to rescue you.
Yeah, but it wasn't your job. I had some work I needed to do for me, and it wasn't your responsibility to carry that. And I do remember when you learned about codependency.
Oh, yeah. Rocked my world.
Yep. Everything started to shift for us at that point because you began to respond differently when I was struggling.
Yeah, that was definitely a turning point for us. I realized that I couldn't fix you. That was the thing. And that my emotional state wasn't dependent on yours. That was a huge lesson I had to learn. Your depression didn't have to become my depression. I could still feel empathy and I could still offer support, but I didn't just have to sink with you.
Right.
Right. So once I rejected that lie that my environment determined my mindset, I had to start making better choices and choose my own mindset, right? I chose to stay engaged in life. I chose to take the kids to the park and try to maintain as positive an attitude as I could. And I definitely was doing my best to hold on to hope in that season. And, you know, I wanted to have joy even though you were struggling, right? It was real and it was honest. I was just trying to be honest with myself.
Right. And that shift in you, breaking free from the myth that your happiness had to rise and fall with mine, that was a huge catalyst for me. Even though it was hard, it was one of the most loving things that you've ever done for me. Because that shift, that healthy boundary, helped me to realize how much I needed professional help. I needed to make some serious changes in my own life.
And, you know, at that point, which was years ago, you really did. You took some very brave steps and got in to seek professional help. And that counselor really helped you move forward. Now, listeners, if you want to hear more about how we worked through all of that and finally broke free from this dysfunction that was plaguing our marriage, I encourage you to go back and check out episode 138, and we'll drop a link in the show notes for you. Okay, hon, let's move on to myth number 2.
The second myth is this: people cannot change.
Ooh, rough. That's a rough one.
This myth assumes that once a person becomes an adult, their personality traits and behavioral patterns are set in stone.
Ooh.
So if your spouse has demonstrated a certain behavior for a long time, the myth says, well, that's just who they are and how they'll always be. But buying into that myth often leaves you stuck in hopelessness and defeat. It makes change feel impossible.
Yeah. And honey, you're living proof that that is a myth. It's just not true.
Right.
Like you've walked through that season of depression and you've overcome it. And gosh, even before we got together, you walked through a long season of addiction and you've been clean for over 25 years.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's true. People can change.
That's right.
And I spent many years of my adult life battling depression and using drugs and alcohol to escape and numb. But like you said, I haven't touched those things in over 25 years, and I haven't struggled with depression for more than a decade.
Yeah.
And honey, you've changed too.
No, I've been perfect from the beginning.
Oh, that's a myth.
Yeah. Oh, we just stumbled over another myth. Gary, if you're listening, I just hit one.
You know, throughout the first 10 years of our marriage, you really wrestled with anger.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you used it to control situations. It was pretty intense.
I used it a lot to control situations. And yeah, it wasn't easy for you. And it actually wasn't easy for me either. But with professional support and a willingness to do the work, I was able to move away from those old patterns. Like I'm a different man today than I was 15 years ago.
I can't even remember the last time you got angry.
Yeah. You know, I've learned healthier ways to manage my emotions. And the truth is, people can and do change. You can check out any biography section at a library and find dozens, maybe hundreds of stories of adults who've actually made radical, lasting changes in their behavioral patterns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even you listening right now, you've probably evolved in your thinking and behavior compared to who you were 15, 10, or even 5 years ago.
Yep.
So don't make the mistake of assuming that just because your spouse has shown a certain pattern of behavior, that they're incapable of changing it. Don't buy into the myth.
Yep.
Change is possible. Absolutely. So what's the next myth, honey?
Well, myth 3 is a big one. And it says this: in a troubled marriage, I only have 2 options: resign myself to a life of misery or get the heck out of the marriage.
Yeah.
Right? Now, according to Chapman, thousands of people live in what he calls self-made prisons because they believe this myth of limited choices. And honestly, I think we fell into that mindset for a while, honey. Like we were stuck and miserable, and we genuinely wondered if divorce was the only way out of that.
Yeah, I remember that season vividly. I was unhappy and emotionally drained, and I didn't have the energy or the clarity to initiate a divorce. But if you had come home and said, I think we should end this, I'm sure I would have just gone along with it. I felt like we were out of options, honestly.
Yeah. But the truth is there are more than just two choices, always, right? Misery or divorce is just not the full picture. Thankfully, we did find another way, the path of small steps toward healing, growth, and reconciliation. Now, the path wasn't easy and it wasn't fast, but man, it was such worthy work.
Yes.
And it led us somewhere better than we ever really could have imagined.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so we're living proof of this. It's been over 24 years now. And not only are we still together, we're no longer stuck in misery. Far from it.
Thank goodness.
In fact, we're experiencing more connection, enjoyment, and intimacy now than we did back when we first fell in love.
For sure.
So if you're listening today and you feel trapped between two painful choices, don't buy into that myth.
Right.
As Gary says, don't simply settle for misery or divorce. All right, let's move on to the next one, honey.
All right. Myth number 4. Some situations are hopeless, and my situation is one of them. This is the belief that while other couples might find healing, like we just described for ourselves,
Right.
well, that's great for them, but my relationship is beyond repair.
Yeah.
The hurt is too deep, the damage is too great, and there's just nothing that's going to change it. Man, if you're still listening right now, maybe you're feeling exactly that way. Maybe you have lost hope, but something inside of you might still be holding on.
Yeah. You know, our marriage felt hopeless too. We were stuck in painful patterns of conflict. We had unresolved issues, and we'd both said and done things that caused real harm.
For sure.
We kept trying, but nothing seemed to make a difference. Things only seemed to get worse. I kept pushing for things to go my way, and honey, you pushed for what you wanted.
For sure.
We thought we could figure it out on our own, but we kept missing the mark because what we really needed was outside help to get unstuck and to move forward.
Yeah, I love how Chapman shares some thoughts about our throwaway society, right? We get bored with cars and electronics and toys and clothes, and even if they still have value, we tend to just toss them aside in search of something newer and shinier and easier. Sadly, that mindset has also crept into how we treat relationships. When things get hard, we unfriend, unfollow, disconnect, or just walk away. Now, sure, there are times where healthy boundaries are needed, but far too often we give up instead of doing the hard, uncomfortable work of relational health and healing. And it's no wonder our culture has come to accept the idea of a throwaway marriage. If you're unhappy, the easy route seems to be to just walk away and start over, right?
I get that. I've lived it. Both of my previous marriages ended after 5 years. And in some ways, I relate to that idea of a throwaway marriage. In my first marriage, we had some issues, but when he suggested counseling to work through those, I refused. I really just didn't want to do the work or put in the effort, and I thought it would just be easier to move on, especially since we didn't have any kids together.
So what was the long-term outcome of that for you, honey?
Well, at first I felt relief and freedom.
Sure.
But as time went on, I began to feel deep regret. You know, my first husband wasn't just a problem to walk away from. He was a person. He was my first love, someone I had made vows to, someone I once deeply cared for and wanted to spend my life with. We had a history, memories, and real connection. And when I look back now, I know I lacked the courage to do the work we needed to stay together.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't spoken to him in over 30 years, but if I ever saw him again, I'd apologize. I would apologize for giving up too quickly.
Yeah, you've shared that with me over the years, how you just kind of walked away prematurely before actually giving it your all to try to save that first marriage. Now, you've also kind of compared your first divorce to your second one, and they were quite different. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. With my second husband, Annika's dad, the issues were much more serious. And of course, we had a child to consider. But this time, I was determined to do the work, to put in the effort and energy. I didn't want to live with the same regrets that I had before, and I certainly didn't want our daughter to lose her family.
Yeah, sure. So what do you mean doing the work? What did that look like?
It meant being willing to forgive and to rebuild broken trust. There was a lot of pain there. It meant facing painful truths and working through hard conversations. We went to counseling for over a year. I communicated openly. I followed through on what was asked of me. I upheld agreements. I gave everything I had to saving that marriage. I really did.
So when you reached the point where your mental and emotional health was kind of at risk, and that became clear that he wasn't really interested in doing his part, how did you feel when you knew it was time to walk away in that situation?
Well, of course, I felt sadness and loss. It was tough. It wasn't what I wanted. But I also knew that if I stayed in that marriage, I would have continued to spiral. And I wouldn't have had the capacity to be the strong, healthy mom that my daughter needed me to be. Walking away wasn't easy, but it was necessary, unfortunately, for both Annika and I.
Yeah. So you're kind of comparing and contrasting those two experiences. What do you think you learned? Does it ever feel like people just don't get how tough it is to blend a family? What if you could experience a community that's all about healthy support, guidance, and practical strategies that help you thrive in your blended family? Well, now you can. Blending Together is a supportive community for blended family couples just like you.
We've educated and supported hundreds of couples navigating the unique challenges of blended family life. Now we're inviting you to join our community and experience the transformation that awaits you. Blending Together is not just another community. It's a place where you'll find practical, real-life strategies for building unity as a couple,
Creating more connection as a family,
experiencing partnership in parenting,
and even dealing with that difficult ex.
Blending Together is a safe, growth-focused space where you'll get to connect with us and maybe more importantly, with other blended family couples who truly understand what you're going through. Along the way, you'll discover practical tools, guidance, and hope that empower you to find a future full of confidence and connection.
When you join Blending Together, you'll gain access to a variety of resources like our private Facebook group and online learning platform, monthly coaching meetings, monthly Q&As, and you'll even get to vote on the content for our monthly workshops.
Blending a family can often leave couples feeling alone or isolated, and quality support can sometimes be expensive and hard to find. That's why we're offering you access to all of this at a super low monthly rate, because every blended family deserves the opportunity to thrive regardless of their budget.
So scroll all the way to the bottom of the show notes and click the link to join us in the Blending Together community and meet other couples just like you in our upcoming community meeting. Plus, when you join before the end of the month, you'll gain access to our brand new bonus mini course that will help you make quick headway. Hey, thanks so much for joining us today. We can't wait to meet you inside Blending Together. Just click the link all the way at the bottom of the show notes to get started.
We'll see you there. Well, I gave up too soon with my first marriage, which is why I carry a lot of regret. I really think that I bought into all four of the myths. I allowed my environment to determine my state of mind. I believed that neither of us could change and therefore we'd always be stuck. I thought I only had those two options, either be miserable or get out. And at the time, I believed our situation was hopeless. Believing those lies cost me a marriage that probably could have been saved.
Yeah, interesting. And even today, even though we're doing great and thriving and all of that, you still have to carry that regret.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. What about your second marriage?
That was different. I chose to believe that change was possible. I refused to give in to hopelessness. And while it still ended, I was able to move forward without regret because I gave it everything I had. Like Gary Chapman says, his book doesn't promise guaranteed success, but what he does promise is the satisfaction of knowing you gave your relationship your best effort. That's what I carry with me, and I have peace around that.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for sharing that, honey. I know it's a lot of vulnerability there. You know, I want to share something that Gary says about divorce. He says, I wish I could recommend divorce as an option. When I listen to the deeply pained people in my office and at my seminars, my natural response is to cry, get out, get out, get out, right? But through the years, I've counseled enough divorced persons to know that while divorce removed some pressures, it created a whole host of others.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. We think it's going to solve everything, but it actually just ushers in other challenges, right?
Exactly.
Gary goes on to say that he's not naive. He knows that divorce cannot be eliminated from the human experience, but it should be the last possible alternative. Before you walk away, try everything. Exhaust every effort to reconcile, to heal, to grow, because too many couples have given up too soon and they've paid a great price. Like, imagine if we had given up too soon.
Yeah.
Look, like now I'm in this season going, look what we would have missed out on, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's why Gary's book and our story isn't focused on divorce. It's focused on something that offers so much more hope, reality living.
Reality living begins when we recognize the myths that we believed and then reject them. From there, we begin embracing new, healthy truths and taking personal responsibility for our own attitudes and actions. So let's dive into what Gary Chapman calls reality living. It's really a framework for taking ownership of how you show up in your relationship and choosing intentional, hope-filled responses even in the middle of hard circumstances.
That's right. You know, Gary outlines 6 powerful realities that directly challenge the myths and offer a more positive, productive way to move forward, even when things are really difficult. And here's the 6. I'm responsible for my own attitude.
My attitude affects my actions.
I cannot change others, but I can influence others.
My emotions do not control my actions.
Admitting my imperfections does not mean that I'm a failure.
And love is the most powerful weapon for good in the world. Each of these realities is explained in the book, along with real-life examples and strategies for people struggling to understand and cope with a challenging spouse. He talks about the apathetic spouses who may be irresponsible, workaholics, or depressed. Abusive spouses, either verbally, physically, or sexually, or controlling spouses, and disconnected spouses who are uncommunicative, unfaithful, or substance abusing. This book offers a practical, hope-filled approach. About 15 years ago, we were on the brink of divorce. I was depressed and emotionally shut down. And honey, you were angry and controlling. It felt hopeless. But the 6 realities Gary teaches played out in our story and led to real lasting change that saved our marriage.
Right.
So the first one is I am responsible for my own attitude. This is foundational. Our attitude is how we choose to think. And we do get to choose what we believe and how we interpret our circumstances.
That's right, hon. And that doesn't mean being in denial or ignoring issues. It means choosing hope even when it's hard. When Kim was depressed all those years ago, I had to stop letting her emotional state determine my emotional state. I chose to stay engaged in life, enjoy time with our kids, and then release the need to fix her.
Yeah. And that choice made a difference. You weren't trying to control me. Your attitude was steady, supportive, and hopeful, and that gave me space to begin my journey of healing. What's the second reality, honey?
The second reality is that my attitude affects my actions. So as soon as I changed my attitude, my actions started to change too. I started participating in life again, even when Kim was distant. And over time, that actually had a positive effect on our marriage.
Exactly. Pessimism and negativity show up in your words, your tone, and your body language.
Yeah, you can't help it.
Yeah, but so does hope. Our internal attitude always leaks out and it shapes our actions.
Yep.
Let's talk about the next one, which is I cannot change others, but I can influence others. This was huge for us.
Sure.
You couldn't change me, honey, when I was stuck in that place of depression, but your behavior influenced me. And over time, your shift in attitude and consistency helped me to take responsibility for my depression and seek help and healing.
That's right. Chapman writes, exerting your influence on your spouse has tremendous potential for stimulating positive change in a desperate marriage. Like I couldn't actually change you, honey, but I could change me. And that shift opened the door for you to change too.
Absolutely. When you were trying to change and control and fix me, that just made me feel like I was your project.
Yep.
That you didn't believe in me or my abilities to care for myself. I felt micromanaged and pressured. But when I experienced the changes you were making for yourself, I began to feel more empowered to step up and follow your lead.
That's right. Okay, let's keep going. The fourth reality living, we just have to embrace this truth that my emotions do not control my actions. This is a really tough one for most of us. When I was emotionally dysregulated, I moved into what we would call a control mode or overfunction. And then through anger and criticism, I would try to control the whole situation. Yeah. But underneath all of that were feelings of rejection, abandonment, and being dismissed. The weight of that stranded stranger dynamic would just kind of drag me down, and I was reacting to it.
Right. And when you got angry, critical, and overfunctioned, then I'd experience the trapped teammate dynamic, and I'd feel overwhelmed, misunderstood, and inadequate, so I'd shut down. The more you pushed, the more I retreated.
Yep.
And we were stuck in what we call a pain cycle.
Exactly. We were just triggering each other over and over again for like 16 years.
Yeah.
Like it just it built momentum. It got worse and worse and worse.
Got really ugly.
And our emotional reactivity nearly destroyed our marriage.
Yeah.
But the reality living is my emotions don't control my actions, right? We started to learn to regulate our emotions. We have to deal with the pain, not allow it to dictate our actions, right? And that was a game changer.
Absolutely.
Now, we still have disagreements. We still have pain, but now we approach much more calmly, and our communication is much more open and thoughtful because we're not allowing our feelings to dictate everything, right? Breaking free from that pain cycle has increased love and trust and connection in our marriage. And we were able to work through tough issues and make some united decisions and solve problems as a team. And we get to do that every day now.
Yeah, we can still do that. It's great. All right, let's move on to number 5. And that is admitting my imperfections does not mean that I'm a failure. The reality is that none of us is perfect. And even if you've concluded that the major problem in your marriage is your spouse's behavior, that doesn't mean that your behavior is spotless. And if you realize that your own behavior has been inappropriate at times, or maybe it's even contributed to the state of your relationship, that doesn't make you a failure.
Yeah.
It actually makes you human. The key is to take responsibility for your part by admitting your own imperfections.
That's right. Yeah. I remember all those years ago that you did some of your own work on kind of your depression and what we came to lovingly call your pity pit.
Right.
And you really worked on that. And I thought, wow, she's really changing. That counselor really fixed Kim. So we must be good now, right? Mm-hmm. But then my own pain started coming up. We talked about my anger and I started reacting with all that controllingness and all that. But I still thought, well, Kim's the one that needs to get fixed, right? And along the way, I said, hey, we need some help for us, not just for you, but couples counseling.
Yeah,
and I remember you looking at me and going, heck no, I'm not getting help with you. Right.
Yeah.
And at that point, I had to make a choice. Was I going to face my own reality, or was I going to throw in the towel and say, oh, well, Kim doesn't want to work on it, so I guess I just can't do anything. Mm-hmm. Like I could have totally played the victim there and held on to the myth that we were just doomed to misery or we needed to get divorced. But instead, I had to admit my own imperfections and just realize that, hey, this doesn't make me a failure, but there's work I can do. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so thankful that you made that choice to work on yourself. Your willingness to admit that you had some things to work on, you had some imperfections.
Yes, I did.
All of that.
I still do, honestly.
Of course, we both still do. Yeah. But that had a really positive influence on me. Mm-hmm. When I noticed changes in you, I softened and came around to getting couples help along with you.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful, right? Mm-hmm. That was such a huge turning point for us. And, it was crazy because you did a lot of work all those years previously. Yeah. So you could have easily been like, I've already done my work.
Yeah.
But eventually you did come along with me. Mm-hmm. And as we worked on ourselves individually, you did some of your stuff all those years ago. And then again later, and then I did my work too.
Right.
And we became more aware of what needed to change. We became healthier individuals. And then we were able to come together and work on the marriage itself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I often say that a skilled counselor saved our marriage.
Yep.
And we're also people of faith. And so as we leaned into God for guidance and healing and comfort and strength, over time, our marriage started to recover from past hurts and hang-ups. And we were able to move forward in new and positive direction.
Absolutely. We had to be willing to embrace help as we discovered how to live out each of these realities. I'm responsible for my own attitude.
My attitude affects my actions.
I cannot change others, but I can influence others.
My emotions do not control my actions.
And admitting my imperfections does not mean that I'm a failure.
Yeah. And I'm noticing how, at least for us, these all work together and they build on each other, which is really cool. And each one of these is so important. And there's a sixth reality Gary shares, and that is love is the most powerful weapon for good in the world.
Yeah.
And honey, you're going to explore that one next week in our Simple Step episode. Yep. So make sure you're following the show so you don't miss out on that.
That's right.
But before we wrap up, I want to be really clear. Reality living is not about excusing poor behavior, tolerating abuse, or neglecting your own safety and needs.
Absolutely not.
It's about making wise choices. And the key is to understand that love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice.
Right.
It's an intentional attitude expressed through appropriate behavior. That means treating your spouse with kindness, empathy, and respect, even when they aren't reciprocating that.
That's right. And sometimes love has to be tough.
Right.
In the book, Gary lays out some practical guidance on how to approach your spouse from a place of tough love, which holds the spouse accountable for inappropriate behavior by putting healthy boundaries in place.
Right.
Tough love says, I care about you too much to sit here and let you destroy me or yourself. I know that's not what's best for us, and I won't cooperate in the process.
Right.
Tough love is not selfish or cruel. It's courageous and often necessary for real change to occur. The bottom line is this. In the context of reality living, Love takes constructive action for the benefit of the loved one, no matter how hard that may be. Hey, we know how painful it is when things become difficult in your relationship. We've been there and we've experienced the hopelessness of feeling stuck. But you don't have to stay there, and we are living proof of that. Today, we want to encourage you to take a few minutes to do some personal reflection. And here are a few questions you might consider as we're wrapping up this episode. Am I stuck in one of the myths? You might go back and just listen to those 4 myths, or you might grab a copy of Gary's book. We'll put a link in the show notes. Another question you can ask yourself is, which of these 6 realities do I need to intentionally embrace? For most of us in any given season, there's at least one that we want to grab a hold of.
Yeah.
And then finally, what new action can I take today that might change the emotional climate in my relationship and be a catalyst for change?
Yeah. If you're feeling overwhelmed and know that you need some help, please don't wait. Check the show notes for a link to Gary's book, and maybe even consider scheduling a free coaching call with us. We've also included past episodes focused on this topic in the show notes so that you can continue learning and growing. Whether you need counseling, coaching, or just someone to talk to, we're here to help you identify your next steps forward.
Yeah.
We challenge you to choose the path of growth, not the path of resignation. If you're tempted to call it quits, ask yourself this: if I walk away right now, will I be able to say I gave my relationship my best effort? If the answer is no, maybe it's time to lean in, not check out.
Such a great challenge, honey. Well said. Hey, we know as you're listening, you might be in a really difficult position, and we don't want to make light of that in any way at all. And we so appreciate you hanging in there and listening with us along the way. I want to encourage you to join me next week for the Simple Step, where we'll talk a little bit about how love really works. But for now, we're going to make this episode a wrap.
Until next time.